This is the usual story that goes with people when they want to get into a powerlifting competition, when they've been training for a while and they think, okay, soon, sometime down the track coming up, they're going to be wanting to do their first powerlifting competition. First of all, it's very rare that you see somebody just go, yep, there's a comp coming up in 10 weeks, 12 weeks, I'm just going to sign up for it and go for it as a first timer. What usually happens is you get a lot of people saying things like, I want to train so that I can get my lifts up to scratch, quote unquote, whatever that means, before I do my first comp. I've even had in the past one or two people tell me, I don't want to compete yet because I just want to train until I get world record numbers before I jump into my first competition. So their idea was that they're just going to roll in and just going to knock everybody down and take all the world records in a local comp and go home. That's the story they were telling themselves. So let's just say time comes, you do your training and you feel pretty confident now. You've been your PBs in the gym repeatedly again and again, and you've got numbers that you consider would be competitive against other people in the field, right? You're not going to come dead last. You're going to come somewhere in the top of the pack. Maybe even you expect yourself, you've analyzed, you've seen the results of other local competitions. It's probably even a novice competition that you're thinking of going into. And, based on those numbers, you're like, yeah, okay, I'm probably going to come first here. If not first, maybe second even. And so you decide it's time to go. You sign up for your first comp and you are pretty confident and away you go. The thing is, almost always, your first competition is going to be at least less than stellar, but probably pretty disastrous. And I'll tell you why. The reason is because when you get into your first competition, all the things that you did not account for, all the things that you didn't think about, even the things that you thought about and you accounted for, are going to throw you off. And no amount of talking about it is going to really prepare you for it. No amount of a coach saying, this is what's going to happen on the day. This is what you're going to probably encounter as some roadblocks is going to really prepare you for it, because you have to actually encounter those things so that you can figure out how you can overcome those things and still stay in the present, still not lose your mind and stay confident moving forward. So here is just a short list of things that can and probably will go wrong on the day. You're going to pick out your bench and you're going to have an extended amount of time before you get the start command. Whereas in training, you pick out your bench and you start descending and starting your first rep basically whenever you feel like. When you get to your chest, the pause itself is going to be extended beyond what you thought, beyond what you expected, beyond what you practiced for, because you've got a referee that is either very strict or a referee that is a beginner. It's one of their first competitions that they are refereeing. You will almost certainly miss a command here and there, whether it's a rack command on a squat or a rack command on the bench or a press command on a bench, or you're going to lock out the deadlift and on the way down you're going to let go a little too early or slam it down too quickly. Something to do with the commands is going to probably go wrong. One of the spotters on either side of the bar in a squat might grab the bar a little bit too early, and that's going to throw you off. And you're going to have to reattempt that. Let's just say they allow it and they agree that the spotter grabbed the bar too early and then didn't give you a fighting chance. You're going to have to get yourself together and you're going to have to reattempt that as soon as that round of lifting finishes. You could have one of the judges that's just not in a good mood and thinks that you hitched a little bit on the deadlift, or pressed on the bench just a little bit earlier than when he or she gave you the press command. In the warm-up area, you would very likely be flustered, a little bit frustrated, because normally you go to the gym, it's you have your own bar, you have your own rack, and you do your thing as you go, working up to your top set and do the rest of your training. But in a competition, there is only a limited number of bars and a limited number of racks, a limited number of benches and deadlift platforms, and everybody needs to share. And you may have picked out the number of minutes that should be between every warm-up attempt that you need to do for your squats, for your bench, for your deadlift. But guess what? People are going to jump in between your warm-up sets. You're going to have to delay it. You're going to have to rush it sometimes. So instead of waiting 5 minutes, you might have to wait 8 minutes. Instead of waiting 5 minutes, you might have to go again after 2 minutes. And that is just the way it is. And if you haven't practiced for that inside a competition scenario, then you're just not going to be used to it. Because in training, you can emulate that, sure, no problem. But it's not quite the same. The pressures of the competition aren't quite the same. It is not uncommon for the competition to be running a little bit behind schedule. And so you need to draw out your warm-up attempts, which means what? The day is going to draw out a little bit more. We only have so much capacity in terms of brain power and focus to be able to dedicate on a day. If you now have a big competition where the squats have drawn out, the bench press has drawn out, and now it's time for deadlifts, a lot of people have already checked out mentally out of that competition. Have you checked out mentally? That's very important. You could get warm-up periods that need to be sped up. It's happened multiple times to me, to my lifters, where they're warming up, and for whatever reason, we need to get on the platform 5-10 minutes earlier. We don't have as much of an intermission between squat and bench, as much of an intermission between bench and deadlifts. We need to rehydrate, refuel, and get back on there ASAP. Guess what? You know those 5, 6, 7, 8 minute breaks you've been taking between sets on deadlifts? In competition, deadlifts move at breakneck speed, especially at higher level competition, at state level, at national level, and especially at world level. And if you don't have the work capacity, and if you don't have the conditioning to be able to deal with that, you are going to struggle. Not only are you going to struggle, you're just simply going to miss deadlift attempts, because you've done 3 squats, you've done 3 benches, multiple hours have passed. They probably required you to focus really intensely. They probably required you to keep your mind in check, and now it's time to deadlift, and it's not easy to do that. If you haven't practiced for it specifically, you won't be able to do it that easily. So these are just a sample of the things that can change, that can go wrong, that can really alter the course of the day for you. So a good coach, first of all, can prevent a lot of these things, can give you a heads up at least, so it's not a total surprise for you and it doesn't throw you off that much. But at the end of the day, going to the competition and making these mistakes, or at least dealing with these scenarios, is just somewhat of a rite of passage. You have to meet these obstacles head on sooner or later. And at the start, you may be very bad at dealing with these things, but as time goes on, you become better and better. Eventually, you'll get to a point where it doesn't bother you at all. Once you've done enough competitions and you've really sharpened that sword, right? So understand that in order to be able to deal with the specifics that a competition gives you, you need to firstly train as much like it would be in competition as possible, meaning you need to have the discipline to control your rest period between sets. You need to be able to, for example, walk into the gym for there to be substandard, what you would consider substandard music for yourself playing, and still be able to get on with it. You need to learn to not have your favorite barbell there. You need to learn to not have your favorite rack available and still be able to squat well, still be able to bench press the way you need to be doing. You need to learn that even if your favorite deadlift platform isn't available, you should be able to go anywhere and get the job done. And if you can't do that, you're probably not ready for high level powerlifting. And by high level, I mean just state level, national level. I'm not talking about world level. If you are like that, you will crumble at world level. You wouldn't even be able to get your mind right from the get-go, because there is just mayhem, so much going on, and the stakes are so much higher. So if you want to challenge yourself and improve yourself, which is what everybody should be doing, that should be really the sole purpose of you going into competition in the first place. If you want to, on top of that, take your powerlifting to the next level, so take it to state level, take it to national level and beyond. If you want to get anywhere, and you're not just doing it on a recreational basis, just for yourself, then I strongly recommend that you start to do as much of your training and emulate as much of your training to make it like your competition scenarios. And if you don't know what that is like, ask a coach or ask people who've been to multiple competitions so that they can guide you on that. They can give you some pointers of what it's going to be like, so that they can give you the commands, the proper commands for squatting, for benching, for deadlifting. Keep an eye on your rest periods. Be comfortable with whatever barbell is available, whatever plates are available, whatever squat rack is available. Just go for it. Be comfortable with whatever music is playing. Just go for it. You need to build confidence. And when you can perform under these conditions and still lift good weights, hit PBs, I'm telling you, the service that you do, the favors that you do for yourself in terms of your self-confidence on the day will make all the difference between first and fifth, between first and third, between third and fifth, right? You're just going to finish higher than you otherwise would have.